yeah, there's a lot we could certainly dive into there. And so to begin with, then, so the sort of classical physics definition of plasma is that, you have gases, solids, liquids, all the usuals, and then, when gases heat to a certain temperature, it becomes plasmic, or it becomes in the plasma state. But as you well know, is that you've written about, the researcher David Bohm studied plasmas in detail, and he started to notice, and I believe that he was one of, if not the first person to see that plasmas exhibit very different behavior that was unexpected, and that was that they had a self-organizational character to them. Now, let's put that in contrast, because mainstream physics doesn't see anything in terms of particles, subatomic particles, atoms, collections of them in gases or plasmas as being anything other than just building blocks with certain characteristics which are mathematically defined and then behave in certainly, more or less predictable ways. But the idea that these could have a sort of intelligence about them, a consciousness, that they could be self-organizing, is certainly not there. And this is something which, I believe David there's some other work that he did as well, which was very pioneering. And, this was it wasn't very, I don't think it was very well received by, mainstream, which, those sort of things really aren't. Because it really is asking people to look at matter instead of being like sort of dead, unliving Lego-like blocks that you just assemble in particular ways and make, woo, I've made something, or something does this. It's now asking you to look at it as it's all a collective expression of a field, of a living, intelligent field that creates these particulate sort of aspects of itself in order to create and bind together and make structural forms. And one way I always explain this as an example, if you imagine, and I may have already mentioned this before, so this might be a repeat, but if you imagine an ocean, and it's all continuous everywhere, there doesn't appear to be anything in it. But the ocean, the field, the source field, the ocean is alive. And then it suddenly decides, what happens if I just compress over here? Oh, hang on a second. Suddenly there's a clumping together, a focal point of energy, which appears to be a particle or an object. Well, I'm going to do the same over here. And if you imagine a little bit like it decides to make little ice balls within itself, it's just suddenly spontaneously freezes over here, freezes over here. Now suddenly you've got this whole field full of these particularized aspects or focal points within the field. Now what happens if they come together? Oh, that's cool. I can now make, subatomics, atomic structures, molecules, molecular structures, and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's all this fractalized way of, sort of different levels of compression of energy and focusing of energy to create forms with particular characteristics and behavior. And that's the other thing. So before we move on, one of the interesting things about this is that behind this, one of the things that my teams have made clear to me is it's within fields are a rich array of what I've come to call sort of intent codes or energetic codes. Now those intent codes are in fields, electromagnetic fields. They surround structural matter, as we call it. And so, when people eat food or they go out into the daytime and they experience the sun, people talk about codings coming from the sun. Well, I believe that's a very real thing. And this very intricate, very incredibly beautiful sort of living library of codes within, say, a photon or a packet or a quanta of light within what we call, light rays or a light field, are rich with these coded intent codes. And when you absorb them, you actually absorb the coding, and you can absorb that generative intent that comes to you. And similarly, in a way, you can also have a degenerative coding, which does the opposite, because we live in a world of polarity. Now let's come back to plasma for a second, because we're going to try and sort of interlink this a little bit. Now, The more compression you have on energy, the more dense and structural it perceives. It becomes very mechanical, it becomes very solid, because the compression is really high. But when you start to release the compression, now it's becoming more fluid, more morphic, its characteristics changes. Suddenly, the perception of it being mechanical and having very simple mechanistic attributes and qualities of how it behaves now changes. So with plasmas, that's a great example, because as the compression comes off and the quality of the energy of what's going on in there is changing, so does the behavior. And now, when I spoke before about under high compression, things appear to be sort of almost, I want to say strange like, but almost deadlocked in a way. It appears like it's a lump of Lego just floating around, just dinging off another and just behaving in very simple ways. And there doesn't appear to be any kind of intelligent control or organization at all. But as the compression comes off and the quality of the energetics, the fundamentals inside what you would call a plasma change, now suddenly it opens up and living energetic qualities start to present themselves. They didn't go anywhere, they were already there. But the compression was so intense, and the coding inside them for their behavior was such that they behaved and made themselves look like they were just dead mechanical, highly dense structures that just behave in very basic ways. And one of the things that, just from my experience before about meeting very advanced beings on ships, is that many of them had bodily structures, but they weren't as we would normally think of them. They had this immaculate glow. There was this living, it's very hard to find the words to describe it. It was just this living intelligence glow in all of the material form of their body, and it would emanate. And it would be the same with their ships as well. And in the inner earth encounters I've had when I've been down there, they live in these beautiful caverns, and it's rich with this, it's just imbued with this living, intelligent energy. You can feel it in the air. It's emanating from the ground. There are crystalline structures all over the place that it just glows from. It's just beautiful. And so as humans, we've been used to this environment of being in something where we have very little experience or perception of living energetics. It all just seems to be solid walls, metal, stuff, and that's how a human perception has been trained to think. Oh, there's nothing there. It's just a bunch of matter rolling around, bouncing off each other. But to me, the truth is that is simply the result of the game we've been playing. And it's a two-way game, because as we have descended in consciousness, so has the mirroring effect of how energy presents itself to us, because we have in fact been requesting high density because of the drop in consciousness. So everything has really compressed itself down, and suddenly you're now in a very limited world of very limited energy behavior attributes, or what I call physics attributes. So again, just to remind people, when I talk about physics, physics is a synonym for me for energy behavior. That's it. It's not the study of mechanical stuff. That's just one part of the spectrum of what energy can do when it takes a highly compressed form. But when you expand it out and look at it, it becomes something very different. Some of the experiences I've had when I've seen plasmic ships, or sort of morphic ships, these are beautiful, pulsing, moving. It's just incredible to watch. It really is. And I couldn't begin to describe them. That would be a whole conversation with itself. But the bottom line is, I feel, is that living energetics is the world that we're moving into. It's becoming aware of energy as a living, conscious aspect of the same field that we are a part of as well. And the more, as the compression comes off, and as the fluidity and living energetics start to become more apparent, now it's interactive. Now it really changes very quickly as we change our focus, rather than in a high state of compression where it doesn't seem to change. It's like, wall, move, please move, and it doesn't do anything. It just stays there, So there is, and when you look at texts of the past, with masters who came here who were able to, manifest on their palms, do incredible things with their focus. They had an access, an openness to source intelligence where that living intelligent field could suddenly change and release the compression, bring back the living intelligent qualities into things, and even imbue that back into them. And that is really another aspect, a really exciting aspect, the way I see it, of where humanity is moving. Because imagine a world where you don't need to get a technological instrument to do X, Y, Z. You can simply focus and lens your intention, and your environment will morph to what it is that you're requesting. That is what we're heading, stepping stoning, towards, I believe. So so in the nest of the plasma aspect, so plasma is the first real apparent step into that world of living energetics, and it goes higher. So it goes beyond the plasmic state into other states where suddenly the structure itself disappears and becomes much more field-like, so you can't even really recognize that there are real structural individuated components there. So it's this beautiful continuum of different energy states. Under one side is high compression, limited behavior, mechanical behavior, and as you move towards a more higher, more evolved energetics, it becomes living, it becomes self-aware, self-organizing, all the other qualities that David Bowe mentioned. And going beyond that, it starts to become this beautiful amorphic living field. And one of my experience, or many experience with the ships that I would bilocate to, is the living consciousness of the ship. You would be there, and the whole field of the ship was living and interactive. This is so different from what we are used to. It's such, paradigm shift is probably even a little bit too soft a phrase to use. It's a really big jump, because we've been so used to the structural, compressed, mechanical properties of energies. And that it's so exciting, because that is what is going to change. So I hope that kind of encompasses a lot of what you were hoping to
it's
cover.
beautiful, David. I can see in my mind's eye this kind of luminescence that we have minimally in our biophotons. You can see the red glow around people, that aura, but there's a kind of luminescence or a radiant presence that I think will start to really accelerate, and we'll become much more of a kind of spectrum of light, of which we are just one part, but also that we are co-creating with it in every moment. There's a constant co-creation feedback loop that isn't one way, it's always that interaction with the field out there. And so that really emphasizes something I talk about a lot, which is our focus and our attention. Where are we putting our focus and intention in terms of what we want to create? Not necessarily as an event, but as a frequency. Is it peace? Is it joy? Is it gratitude? And that frequency will mirror back to us. Is that how you see it?
And I'd love to add, that was a really lovely explanation, and I'd like to sort of add in that as well, because one of the key things you mentioned there was our focus and our perception. Now, to me, one of the important things that has confined our perceptibility to what we appear to see as dead mechanical structure, it's part of the lowering in consciousness, the confinement of consciousness we've experienced. Now, as we evolve and as we expand, and we're raising up quite innately because of everything that's going on, what's actually happening in a big way is our perception. Our perception is really expanding and opening up, because the stuff that I'm talking about, it's not that it isn't there and it just comes in once things take off, or whatever you want to call it. You are actually sitting in a rich field of multidimensionality right now. And the reason why you're not able to perceive it properly, or, in the most part, is because our perception energetics have been tuned and focused to a very particular small bandwidth of, the dimensional or vibrational energetics environment, if you want to see it that way. Now, what that means is, it's like, just an analogy with one of those old radios, when you tune it up and down, you go to different stations. We've been tuned to such a low station, all we can hear is this, and you'd swear, that's the whole world. This is all I hear, there's nothing else. Truth is, all those other frequencies and layers of reality are simultaneously overlaid, but you haven't tuned to them yet, And that's the thing. So it's really about, and this is the thing I say to people, and that the Arcturian said to me, a while back when I was really getting a little frustrated with an invention they were trying to get me to create, and I was trying to be too heady about it. And when I relaxed, then they said, and I know I've said this before, but it's a really good reminder, is that you're going to find that living with the perception of your heart intelligence is going to be a world apart from living from the perception of your intellectual intelligence. And people tend to associate intelligence with intellect, and that, they're one and the same. Well, intellect is one facet of intelligence, but the core of intelligence is here. And this is what I believe humanity is coming back to, and this is where our perception is going to change. Because by practicing coming down into the core intelligence, the level of energetics or physics I've been able to perceive, and this is another thing, because people tend to say, and love has these beautiful qualities, it's soft, it's kind, it's compassionate, but it's also the master physicist, it's the master chemist, the master artist, the master linguist, it's everything that you could possibly ever want. It is the most beautiful energy, and it's the creator of all. I really want to remind people of that, especially, the scientists and engineers out there that might be thinking, oh, I got a second, this is getting a little bit airy-fairy for me. Well, the truth is that, the source intelligence, which we give it a name, we call it love, but love is simply a word that points to the source intelligence. It is the master intelligence of all. It is benevolent, it is kind, it is compassionate, but it is also the ultimate physicist, the ultimate maker of, everything and anything, and is a purely creative energy as well. All new things have to come from the source intelligence. It's that which does it. And we'll come on to that later, because I know you want to move on with that subject. But essentially, just to really bring the point here is that when you learn to align yourself with that core source intelligence within, you call it your higher self, you call it the heart of your soul, the sacred heart, whatever you want to call it, suddenly your level of perception is going to change. You're going to be able to perceive things, feel things, sense things, intuit things, see things that you never could before. That certainly happened to me, and I'm not joking when I say that. That really was very, very palpable, the difference. And I've been able to see things that they said you simply will not see using your intellect. When you use your intellect to do things, you're going to reach a wall, you're going to reach a ceiling. Because the mind itself is a beautiful instrument, but at the moment it's a structural device, and it can only perceive in the same nature with which it operates. And so its level of perception has an inherent limitation to it. But if you really want to see the very deep and meaningful energetics, the living energetics behind things, you need to go into the core. So yeah, that really is something I feel is a very important message to help people with, for sure.
Fantastic, David. And the reason, from my point of view, I feel your work is just right on time, is if I'm looking at this picture astrologically, it's a hugely concentrated, focused period of acceleration in humanity's ability. These next few months in particular, there's so many convergences that I've banged on about in various videos over the last sort of 18 months or so. Whether you're looking at, cosmology, astronomy, astrology, or teachings, physics, whatever we're looking at. There's this incredible convergence happening right now. And so from your point of view, are you also seeing this as a convergence of very accelerated evolution that we're right smack bang in the middle of right now?
Yes, I do, and it's got many facets to it, one of which is this shift in perception, the offering of source intelligence for humanity to come back into heart intelligence and heart perception. And it comes with it so many different paradigms, because the old, as we know it, has been very much sort of founded, predicated, whatever you want to call it, on structural energetics, where things were just controlled into place and control structures upon control structures and so on. Because force is just the application of pressure with, as an alternative to creative intelligence, living intelligence, manifestation, being morphic with energies, all the powerful things that come with being a creator being. So those groups of beings or humans that have chosen to go into that control paradigm, it's all about force, it's all about pressure, those kind of things. And, big systems have been created out of that whole paradigm. And now what we have is, now the time has come where humanity is making this transformation. And the energetics of right down to the very subatomics themselves are changing, which means their behavior is going from dead mechanical structure to living energetics, which means that control starts to dissolve away and becomes, just literally becomes a nothing burger, essentially. And it's all about, part and parcel of showing humanity, you see, you are leaving the control paradigm. I always say it's funny because if you look at the word control, I always say to understand the kind of the characters that operate in it is in the last 4 letters, and to understand what it's really about is in the first 3. So,
well said.
So, I always say it's quite funny that word's put together. But anyway, so, what is really happening, I feel, is that humanity is going through these step-by-step movements to learn to just let go of any belief system, anything that you have, any energetic that you hold, which aligns you with the control paradigm, with the high densified, structured paradigm. What is it that's keeping you there? And you mentioned perception before and what we focus on. That's really, really important. Because when we continually focus on those same concepts, that is what we are cyclically recreating within ourselves. It's a bit of a feedback loop. And so, the ability to take a step back, relax, breathe rhythmically, as the team say, or however you feel you want to do it, and breathe yourself into your center again, is something that I would really encourage people to quite often practice doing, even just like a few minutes here or there, whenever you catch yourself throughout the day being a bit stressed or moving out of your center. And one way I would say, and we spoke about this before, recording, is for anybody wondering, well, how do I know I'm out of center? Well, while you're in your center, you're at peace. You have a very crystal clear focus, but the focus isn't a grip. It's not like, yes, I'm focused on stuff, I'm really in that zone. That's not what heart-centered focus is about. Being in heart-centered focus is a crystal clear, open clarity of seeing the whole thing. You're not gripping on anything. You're not holding on anything. You're in a very neutral, very peaceful, centered observation of things. So if you find yourself getting too involved with things outside, getting really caught up in sort of, anger or fear, those kind of things, those are all indicators that you are now away from your center. Because, to give you an example, when I've been up with these very advanced beings, when I look at them, these are really centered beings, And when you look into their eyes, it's just peace and grace. There's not an ounce of push-pull, control, fear, any of that. They are so in such a crystal clarity of perception state, but it involves no grip, no control. And they have a full spectral perception of you. Because the more you let go of grip, if you think about it, when you're gripping on something, you are confining your focus to what you are gripping. You have locked your focus onto the grip, what you're gripping onto. As you relax, just like the compression coming off of energetics, suddenly your perception opens up, and now you have a very full spectral perception energetically. And so that's another thing. People talk about having a high degree of focus. Well, to me, you can lens your focus, but make sure that you let go, if you're doing that, because it's going to, to come back into your center where you have that full perception clarity again, because the type of focus that humanity has used over many, many years, hundreds, thousands of years, is in fact a focus of control and grip, And I remember one being once saying that, what has developed in humanity is that the mind's version of understanding is control. The heart's version of understanding is compassion. It's very different. So,
I'm so encouraged to constantly, through many lifetimes, defer to the external. And that's far away and become very agitated. And what I've often suggested to people is stick Post-it notes all over your house, bathroom, in cupboards, the walls, saying, "Are you at peace?" Are you at peace? And that's how, when you're in the run of your day, you can catch yourself. And if you're not at peace, find your easiest default method of booking that instantly. Is it simply closing your eyes and watching your breath? Is it candle anything? Is it listening to a particular kind of music? I mean, I've had a very fast-moving day today. Before I pressed the button to connect with David, I knew I had to just go out and put bare feet on the grass. I had to decompress before I engaged, because I was just too buzzy. There'd been too much happening. I kept with myself. But we were also talking, David, about the importance, and it's again something I've talked about endlessly, is living from the inside out, not the outside in.
Yes.
So much drama, so many events, so much dynamic unfolding, so many of them in the coming weeks and months. And our habit has been either someone's coming to save us, or my goodness, or whatever. And you were really emphasizing what is most important is this state of being, which, again, I talk about a lot in my work. So, what would you like to share about that? Because I know it's so crucial, and your teams really wanted to bring that forward as an important message today.
Yes, thanks for sharing that. That's a really good topic. One of the things, as you were saying that my teams were, and my higher self was showing, was an image. If you imagine a sphere, a little bit like this image here, this beautiful glowing sphere of the sun here, and imagine yourself as that being. Now, glowing with energy, and that's the state of being purely centered in the full spectrum observer state. And now suddenly you start arranging and putting your focus on different things. So when you focus, it's like a portion of that light comes out as you see this little beam here that's coming out. Imagine that would be your focus on something over here. Suddenly your energy moves in that direction. You're lensing your energy and directing it somewhere. Now imagine over layers and layers of lifetimes that you have brought forward from previous ones to this one, and all the series of trainings to be so ultra focused on everything outside you have. Suddenly you've got tons of these rays of energy pouring out. It's depleting you, it's really pulling you. It's a little bit like, they were saying, a little like puppet strings, all these strings come out of you, and people can get sort of moved around in all sorts of different directions. But if you come back into center and you learn to understand that instead of being reactive, which is having all those things all over the place being pulled by different areas of what you're focusing on, instead it's learning responsibility, your ability to respond and choose how and when you direct your energy, if at all, but always to remain in center and then choose, how do I wish to direct my energy? Nothing outside is going to dictate or tell me what I'm to focus on. I will choose what I focus on, how I focus on it, if I focus on it at all. And that's a big thing, because humanity from the word go has been trained outside, 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 with nothing on the inside. That's one of the biggest tricks to be played, that people actually reinforce themselves. And this is not meant in any kind of judgmental way. I've gone through this process myself of realizing how I was doing it as well. What we have learned to do is be so ultra focused on everything outside, to plan, to move, to put things into place, these kind of things, that we have gone through a process of almost completely forgetting the wellspring of the unlimited source intelligence we have inside us, and being so interconnected with what we focus on that, we're playing this jostling game all the time with things we focus on, trying to keep one step ahead or maintain an upper hand, whatever you want to call it, And again, to draw an analogy with these beautiful beings that I've encountered, they have this sublime centeredness. You know, you could go all crazy in front of them. They will just smile at you. You know, it's just, you know.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. They could be screaming, shouting, spitting in front of them or something. They will just simply smile at you. They don't have that kind of outer attachment focus that we have cultivated or been taught to cultivate. You know, they have such an inner centeredness, and they can choose how they apply their energy, where they focus their energy, if they focus their energy, you know, and it's such a beautiful state of being. So they have this beautiful sort of vessel around them within their bodies, and the fields around that are just filled with source intelligence. And they're so good at how they apply that. And I can feel them as saying there's one message they would really love to encourage humanity to really begin to ponder on and play with. You know, what do you do with your energy? You know, are you really making the choice to focus on something? Or are there belief systems inside you that are reacting and causing you to just innately focus on things without even making that choice to do so? And they're saying that the more that you practice the simplicity, and they're saying this is not complicated, and they're saying, laughing, they're saying this is one of the things that you humans are so good at, is complicating things. You know, people want, you know, they think the more sophisticated and complicated it is, the more cooler it is, or whatever, you know. But the truth is, as somebody who's been in those areas of, you know, complex analytics and all that kind of stuff, I can say firsthand that you will find the most beautiful, blissful, deep, and most profound truths in simplicity than you ever will in complication. You know, having gone through, you know, those sides. Now, as you center within yourself, things are going to come into your awareness. You'll start to become aware of deeper truths without even efforting. You won't even analyze or work anything out. You will just know, because the knowingness is already there. You're letting through source intelligence and all that comes with it. You know, that's one of the beautiful things. And so, you know, there is a great deal, I feel, that the teams are saying, what they're noticing, there's a great deal of outward focus on what's going to happen here, what are they doing, when are the ETs coming down to save us, and a whole slew of different things. And the message I can feel, it's the Arcturians coming through now, and the Pleiadians there as well. They're saying, we are in a state of delight waiting to meet you. But there is a transitional process that humanity must go through where you learn to be centered. They're saying very clearly, we are not your saviors. You are here to elevate yourselves and to show that you can elevate, and you most definitely can do that, they're saying. You know, they're saying, do not fool yourselves into thinking you cannot do this. Most definitely you can. And you've done it many times before, they're saying. They're saying the reason why you are here is because you were selected. You know, it's like, I've heard this before, and I feel they're mirroring this. There are so many beings that wanted to come here, but the ones that were, you know, sort of allowed through the gate, so to speak, to incarnate here were the ones that have had the experience, the ability to break these stuck systems before and evolve themselves. So if you are here, you are one of them, you know. And so they're saying, you know, shed the veneer of self-doubt. It's nonsense, they're saying. It really is. Just allow yourselves to feel the simplicity, and they're saying, don't think it. That's one of the big missteps a lot of people do. They try and think themselves into, yes, I'm this, yes, I'm that. They're saying, we ask you to feel the truth of this. Don't, you know, invent a mirage of, you know, what you think you are, because what you really are, you can't think. You know, it's beyond your ability of your beautiful mind to be able to comprehend. But if you can sit, and the more you practice connecting with here and just relaxing, surrendering to your center, you know, practice. It's really getting your whole system to just gently, step by step, realign itself back with that soft, powerful, infinite center. You'll get realization after realization in each step after each step as you do that. And they're saying something is going to happen. We're not going to tell you what. We're not going to spoil the surprise, they're saying. But they're saying the reason why they're not going to is because it will spoil the beauty of the experience. You know, something profound awaits in the heart center of each human. And it's coming forward, and they're saying, when you connect with this, when you really surrender into this, life is going to change permanently. It is something, it's interesting. These are the first sensations I'm getting of this. I mean, I think they've been showing me in bits before, but not quite in this forward way before. And they're saying this is for everyone, including me as well. So, okay, is there anything else you'd like to share on this? Not for the moment. And but they're saying that, you and everyone listening to this message will be utterly delighted. And, they're saying they've noticed, we've talked about that word delight before. And so they're saying the word delight will take on a whole new meaning. The sensation of delight in itself, they're saying that is what they live in each moment, all the time. They never fall from that delight. And it is a delight in being alive. It is a delight in existence. It is a delight in creativity, in the ever unfolding and expansion. They're saying what you have found yourselves temporarily caught up in at the moment will seem like an entire nonsense when you feel this state within inside you. And they're saying, we know that might seem to many people right now to be a sort of, so I'm not sure what word you used there, more of a sensation they're giving me. It's more like, people are saying, oh, but things are so tough, and they're kind of more or less, that's what they were kind of suggesting. They're saying when you allow yourself peace to really settle down and just relax those attached focuses on all these outer goings on, something is going to come up inside you. It's going to present itself to you very bit by bit as you're ready for it. And when you finally merge into that and really align with that, just magical things are going. I'm getting a slight sensation of what it is now, but it's almost like an entire paradigm of knowing is going to come into your being. And then you'll look at everything that's going on and you're just going to burst out laughing. They're saying it's,
I'm there already, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And, you're going to see it for what it is in terms of the true energetics of what's been going on, and all of the facades of, all of the heavy weight of fear and anguish and all the other emotions that all of us have, one time or another attached to things going on. Will just quickly fade away. I can feel them saying.
Beautiful. And David, just before we press the record button, your teams are bringing through the idea of ignition. There's some kind of ignition.
Right, yes.
Astrologically, I'm very much thinking for astrologers out there of Uranus conjunct Sedna, exactly to the degree. And so it suggests that it isn't a logical linear process. It's some kind of jump that's going to happen, fairly imminently, because we're in process, we're in the chrysalis.
Yes, they're saying this is part of the ignition. There is, what I'm seeing is literally, again, I chose this background because it looked very pretty, but now I can see it's actually really helpful. I think that my higher self had a hand in putting this up. So if you look at this sun here, again, what they're showing me is an image in the human heart center coming through the infinite source gateway, or, whatever words you want to call it. There's this connectivity between your heart, your energetic heart, the soul heart that you have, and your direct connection with source intelligence. That is coming through. Something is going to be introduced into the human heart, which is going to ignite, and it's going to look like this at the center. And it's going to be really profound. And they're saying there aren't any words to describe this, and this is why they hold back and refrain from speaking too much about it, because this is a purely experiential thing. And they're saying this is the ignition that they spoke of. There is going to be an ignition, and it's within you, every one of us. This is not something, a lot of people focus on a lot of things. And like I said before, it's quite fun to look at this stuff. There's a lot going on, But as long as you keep centered, you don't attach yourself to the goings on, and you understand that these are reflections of our transition inside, And there are helpful things that come in from all different angles, to help the ignition. But ultimately, it's about the ignition within the human heart of the return to source intelligence. And that is what is being offered, and that is what we're going through. The Earth, they're saying, is going through her ignition as well. We're going through it together. And her ignition is causing this beautiful emanation to emanate from the center of the Earth. And they're saying the Sun is doing the same. There is a three-way ignition between the Earth, humanity, and our Sun, they're saying. And it's very, very profound. And again, they're smiling, laughing a lot. They're saying, we know they can already read the potentials of people who are going to be watching this. So we already know you're they're using the word almost incessant need to know more information. But they're saying with the sincerest love that we would really ask you to experience this. Because the beauty in what you're going to experience is going to be something that you cannot describe with words. It wouldn't even come close to what's coming.
It's just beautiful messages you're sharing with us, David, and I think this is going to be so welcome to people who feel they're in the thick of the trench almost of challenge.
Yes,
and they're feeling very weary and very tired, and I think it will really boost and inspire people, which is so beautiful. And I know another aspect of our reality that you wanted to touch on as well was something that you call absence of intelligence.
Yeah. Well, before we do that, there was another message I felt they wanted to just bring just on the back of what we were saying there. And they were saying that for those people that are really feeling down and just depleted and just really a lack of sense of hope, they're saying, very genuinely ask yourself the question, from where are you getting your hope from? Where are you getting your energy of excitement from? Is it outside of you? Because they're saying, if so, you will be disappointed. And this is what's going to happen. And they're saying, what has happened? And they're saying, they say this very jokingly, they wish to excite and inspire people by being funny about it, not being by, I don't think they have an ounce of solemnness or seriousness about it. They're very playful. Now, one of the things is that what humanity, again, coming back to humanity being trained to sort of see everything outside of them, what happens when we've gone through this experience of a lack or apparent lack of connectivity with source intelligence, the wellspring, the unlimited, unstopping wellspring of pure love, pure joy, pure intelligence, pure compassion, all of the good things. So now, if you're in a human body with a lack of that connectivity, now what do you do for your kicks, your happiness, your general sort of well-being? So what's happened is we've had to turn to things outside of us, events, parties, lots of external things, that we attach to. We look forward to them. They think, yes, when I have that, I'm going to feel so great. That's going to give me my kick for next week or something like that. And they're saying this is part of the ignition process. What you're going to find is, and they're saying for those people who are feeling the sort of downward pull, it's because this is an invitation to understand your over-dependence, your over-connectivity to things outside of you that are based on attachment, not love connection in a way. And so those things are really coming up in people's faces to say, hey, do you really want to keep doing this? Do you see what it just, do you see what it's doing? It's just pulling. It's never going to give you what you want. It's an illusion. It's a mirage. But instead, if you come inside and you practice heart connectivity, you're going to find an innate self-value. You're going to find an innate self-joy that is not dependent on anything, any event, anyone, anything outside of you. Now, when you are in that place, like with those beautiful beings, that emanation of pure joy, you need nothing outside of you. But when you do interact with things outside of you, the interactivity with another being who's operating at the same, the amplification of that sweet source intelligence is immense. It's not like some of the weird interactions we as humans have where there's this push-pull and take and all this kind of stuff that goes on. It is a completely different experience. They're nodding to that. They're saying, yes, what they experience in that interconnected state within their heart center is vastly different. And they're saying, this is what will come to you. So they're saying, be reassured, those people who are feeling oh my God, when is this going to be over? When are we going to be saved? What's going to happen? They're saying, let go of that. Let go. Learn to let go of attachment. You are safe. They're showing me that image of, that old human phrase of, one monkey swinging to another tree, and I'm not going to let go of the other one. Grab the other branch to let go of the other one. And they're saying, let go and trust back in yourself. This is the same source intelligence that created this entire universe. It knows what it's doing. Trust, that is you. You're at the birth point of everything in this entire creation. It's that's what you're letting go to. That's what you're trusting in. You're not putting false hope or hopium into anything. You are literally returning to the very well source of where you came from, and all the things that you have been seeking and trying to get through external attachment, through external events or happenings or this or yada 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 or anything. They're saying that will fall away. You will need none of it, because you will realize and you will feel the innate sweetness that is going to emanate from you continuously in every moment, non-stop. And that is the place that you're going to live from. So they're saying, when you feel yourself in those awkward states, just remember that and try and just practice bringing yourself again and again and again back into the center. Help that ignition come faster and deeper for you by practicing that connection. And keeping it as fun and as playful, as joyful is the only way to do it. Don't get serious about it. Be playful, be fun. These teams, these are really advanced beings. I can't emphasize that enough. Play and fun and joyfulness is at their center. It's what they do. And that's really hopefully another message to show you. If these beings that invent these advanced things that everyone thinks, wow, is that so cool? Well, they do it from a place of fun and joy and playfulness. That is the center of them. So just remind yourselves of that as well. So I just wanted to lead that message because I felt they really wanted to bring that across for people.
I mean, I can get that in nature very easily. The simplicity and the joy. And wow, look at that. Every first time and the wow. You can be quite childlike in wonder and awe. And in nature. But, what you're sharing is so important and fundamental and beautiful. It really is. It's almost that we are on the brink, whatever that means in time, of becoming kind of realized beings.
Yes.
More luminous realized beings, and we're on track for that because this is a one-way.
Yes.
We're moving into that, and that feels really interesting.
Well, one of the things to add to that as well is before we incarnated, this was the plan. When people talk about, the plan, to me it really is quite simple. It's simply the ignition and ascension of the human being and the earth, and the sun at the same time. And we all knew that this was a given, not, let's see if we can make this work. It was a given before we came in. What is up to choice is what wobbles we take to get there, So, be rest assured that, the ascension process is a source intelligence, and all the immaculate teams and beings that work, to bring this to fruition, is a done deal. There is no ambiguity there. There is no doubt. But like I said, because we have free choice, the only freedom of wiggle we have really is like how do we choose to get from this end of the field to that end of the field? We can go all the way around the edge if we want to, or we can take the easy path. It's up to us. But there is absolutely no question that because this is the nature of the living intelligence of the universe. It didn't create itself to fall to pieces. It created itself to expand, to have joy, to have adventures, to explore, to do beautiful things, to create, to love, to do all these beautiful things. That is, the many different qualities, from a human perspective about how the source intelligence is. And it's just because of this polarity experience that we've had to experience, we've got the experience of the illusion of the opposite. And so those paradigms are crumbling down now, and then the veils are coming off, and we're coming back to what it is to live in the center, not in polarity as we have been doing, but in the center, which is the source intelligence state of being. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, beautiful. So maybe this is a good time now, David, to talk about one of the possible distractions, the wiggle.
Right. Yes.
Have in front of us right now.
Yeah, I sort of lovingly call it absence of intelligence, and I'm sure people will understand what's meant by that with the first two letters of. And one of the things I would like to say about it is what the teams have shared with me is that please don't make the mistake of thinking that a technological mimicry can be the same as source intelligence. It cannot. To give you an understanding, what I call lovingly absence of intelligence is rooted and footed in structure. It has to be structural. Structure makes up a tiny, tiny, tiny portion of all of existence, and it can only exist in a highly compressive state of energy. As energies raise, as everything starts to raise up, the ability for structure to behave in the ways that it is done starts to change. It can't exist in that paradigm anymore. And now suddenly matter becomes more under the intelligent influence, like, David Bohm was talking about plasmas exhibiting self-organization behavior. As that compression lifts off, suddenly source intelligence comes more into play, and those things start to behave differently. And now, so one of the things about absence of intelligence, people think, oh, it can make these amazing images, amazing videos, that kind of thing. But what is that actually doing? What it is doing, it is taking a whole series of images that are there as part of the training and morphing aspect of it, and it's amalgamating them together to try and make something new. It hasn't actually created anything new. It's mulched together what is existingly there. And so what it is, it's a technological mimicry that just amalgamates and it permutates. That's all it does. It can't create anything. Now, the creative intelligence is source intelligence. If you want to create something brand new, that is where it comes from. And people say, oh, yeah, but I have ideas about stuff all the time. I have an intellectual stuff. I create something new. Are you creating something new? Does your intellect really create something new? Or does it just mulch together ideas, thoughts from previous experience, puts them together and appears to create something new out of the combination? It's like having a kitchen full of 10 million ingredients. The ingredients are set, all you have to do is mix them up in different ways and come up with some new things. But what if you can change the ingredients? Only source intelligence does that, So you can mimic the apparency of intelligent creativity, but it's only a mimicry and it's only an apparency. It's not in truth a real thing. Now, the other thing to this is as well, one of the many qualities of source intelligence is compassion. Technological mimicry doesn't have access to that. It simply behaves in the way that it's designed to do, and the way it's been trained to do. That's it, And so, it's no substitute in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. And I say to people, if you imagine the source intelligence that you have inside you, that you can choose to open up to if you wish, is the same master physicist intelligence, the same master compassion that developed and created the entire universe, every galaxy, every subatomic particle, everything you see in existence. Why would you possibly want to invent a mimicry, a very small scale, extremely limited mimicry of that as a substitute? It makes no sense. Even on a thought level, when you put it like that. And so, that's what I would say is, to me, it's a sense, another distraction away from the true intelligence you have inside you. And I know that there are different races that have evolved beyond it that did have forays into that environment, created all sorts of things that were based on it. It all went horribly wrong. There were big battles and all sorts of things, and they learned their lesson, because ultimately, what is it that stops you harming another being? Well, it's the source intelligence, the compassion within you that chooses not to. It's not a program. It's not a checklist. I know some people do operate that way, but ultimately what makes you benevolent is the benevolence of the intelligence that is at your core. That's not something that you can mimic technologically, because technology is itself a structure, and structure does as structure is designed. That is it. Now, if it's designed from a place of somebody that's highly intellectual, has little to no connection with their source intelligence, and has odd ideas about what to do with it, that's how it's going to behave, or the mimicries are going to appear to behave. So I would say that my excitement is that we are moving into this beautiful, living, organic intelligence, heart-centeredness of humanity, where we will be able to create and invent things that are far beyond any intellectual capacity. And that is coming. And introduce things in a way that are beyond, when I see the kind of innovations and ships that these beings have, they are profound, but they're not technologies as we would think of them. These are living, conscious beings, vessels, that, and the higher they go, the more feel like they become, and they can do the most unimaginable things that you simply cannot do with structured technology. There are literally limits because it is limited by the compression that it's in. It's like having a game where you make the rules so condensed. It's like, this is all you can do. Have fun, and you go off and you do X, Y, Z, and you have your exploration, and you realize, you know what? I think I've pretty much done everything that could be done in this realm. I've reached the limit. And then when you realize that when you come back into your creatorship and your center again, it's unlimited again. You have unlimited creativity. And to me, in a nutshell, absence of intelligence is really the fascination of people who are intellectually orientated, that have, to a degree lost that connection, or are ignoring the connection, or don't want the connection inside with their source intelligence within. I know that sounds like a very broad, sweeping kind of summary, but in a nutshell, that's pretty close to the truth, I would say.
Yeah, because organic intelligence is infinite, isn't it, David? Whereas,
yes.
What you're referring to always has a finite end. It has no heart, it has no soul, it has no divinity.
Yes.
When I was being asked in a recent interview about my thoughts on it, I actually said I'd rather have a conversation with a donkey on my morning walks, and I thought edited out of the interview, but it wasn't, and I'm now getting people writing to me about my conversations with donkeys. So, but at least that is organic, and at a different level. The other thing that concerns me is that the technology you're talking about takes an immense amount of power, electricity to work properly, and a huge amount of water to cool down the servers. And if I'm thinking of poor Indian and African people who walk very long distances to get buckets of not clean water for the day, somehow our global value system has gone pretty wonky, in that we're having a profligate use of water over here to do something which we think is very sophisticated and civilized, but actually it's just so far away from life and heart and love. So I'm really glad that you've spoken about that. I think that's going to be very helpful for people, because it's very easy to be diverted by that novelty, but it's kind of, if I'm looking at it astrologically, it's a repeat of a very large cycle, which is what you were referring to earlier. We're coming around again. Are you going to do the same again, humanity?
Right.
How many times are you going to have to do this? Giving away your power to the external yet again, or are we going to do it differently this time around? And
there's one thing. Oh, sorry, Keith. So you haven't finished.
No, that's it. Yeah, over to you.
There's one thing I'd love to, because as you were speaking again, they were showing me an image. They're saying that I'll decode what they gave me. It was really a very clear image, and they've shared this before, that what the human form is moving into, because the very nature of the building blocks of the body, right down to the subatomics, all the way to the molecular DNA and so on, because DNA is shaped in a very, very divinely designed way. And it's almost, in a way, that they're saying, think of a tuning fork. It's a tuning fork to allow your body to be attuned, to be a perfect receptor to source intelligence. Now, bits and pieces of mechanical silicon and all that kind of stuff doesn't do that. It's not designed to do that in that way, But the human body is this immaculate system, and they're saying when humanity goes through this process and evolves, you're going to find that the human body itself, every subatomic particle, everything is going to be interconnected in this living, organic, source intelligence web form, if you like. And they're saying the ability to perceive, create, and transform energies in that state is beyond, far beyond, just in one human body, that all the collective of absence of intelligences could possibly even hope to get close. They wouldn't even get there. And that's just one human body. They're saying that your ability to perceive energetics from across the galaxy, and I know they've spoken about this before, and to have this rich living library access system, which will be the human body, like the other races who have had these forays into experimenting with absence of intelligence and then realize, bad idea, we should have this, let's change direction, realize that, and one group in particular, I think it was the Antarians, said that when, they realized what nonsense that was to even do that. And they realized that accessing source intelligence in a body that is really attuned to that gives you access to things that you couldn't even dream of in doing technologically. It's just, I felt like they just were showing me that message again from a different perspective, particularly to do with the makeup of the human body, how things are going to transform, how things are going to change. Because the difficulty at the moment is because people are operating in such a relatively disconnected state, they still have the overlays of feeling like, technology is the solution or everything's, but they haven't had the sampling, the feeling, the sensation of just how unlimited and vast that source intelligence is inside them. And like these other races found, when they did switch back to that, they realized, my goodness, what were we doing? That was really a wrong road to go down, and they did realize that in the end. So yeah, I just felt to say that as well.
Beautiful. You've just bestowed, as always, David, so many gifts on us that I wasn't expecting to come out. And, we just let the conversation be spontaneous and flow. And I think it will really help people to find that anchor point, their center, their anchor point.
Yes.
Their absolute knowing that we are in the process of this happening. And I'm so grateful to you, and I'm speaking on behalf of, I know, a lot of the viewers who love you to bits, and they will be so much love and gratitude to you for this sharing as well. And just before we go, is there anything else you feel that you or your teams would like to share with us, particularly as we enter these very, very dynamic 3 months, I think, till the end of the year?
Yeah, there's a few things, and there may be, I could ask them at the end if they want to bring a message through, but what they're impulsing me with at the moment is particularly source intelligence, and this is also from me as well as a human being, is that to all of you, remember that the same things that you might see in me, is the same thing that is in you. Okay, so, when I give this information, the same abilities to give it the same access, it all dwells within you. There is no difference. So, for example, many of you might think, I wish I was more scientific, or I wish I could do this. You can. You already can. The master physicist, the master energy creator is in you, and, you may have chosen a life to go through certain things and focus on them just to puzzle piece solving. But in truth, everything that you might see in other people that you revere or might like, it's all within you. And I'm not saying that just to butter your bread or make you feel better. It really is the truth. Really remind yourself if you feel less than or down or not quite, up to scratch. Up to scratch to what? You were part of creating the entire universe. What's there to be up to scratch to? And this is a truth I believe that people are returning to very slowly. And like I said, that remembrance, that sensation of that really is going to come back to you. You are really going to feel it the more you connect in here. There's no substitute whatsoever for the core intelligence inside you. And that's the most important thing that anyone can ever do, in my view, is keep connecting, keep asking your higher self to come into you, flood you, immerse you with that love light, help your body go through the changes gracefully, and adapt to becoming a pure vessel of your higher self, your source intelligence. Because when you're there, my goodness, you'll look back and think, oh my goodness, why did I ever think like that? It's like, it's going to seem so funny. It really will.
I've personally felt a shift, even just having this last hour with you. Actually, I felt quite a significant As always, super grateful. And would your teams like to bring through anything in the channeling? Would that be appropriate? How do you feel, David?
Okay, so Source Love Intelligence, my higher self, my Arcturian Love Light family, is any message that you would like to channel through? And yes, Source Intelligence would like to bring one through. Greetings, beloved souls. It is with great joy that all of creation is in fact experiencing, whether they realize it or not, in civilizations that span this galaxy and beyond, are aware the tremendous leaps that you, humanity, is making. You see, you are simply not just going through what you call the ascension process for yourselves, and indeed the Earth herself. The magnificence of what you are taking part in is most certainly causing a profound ripple effect that civilizations beyond any of the galaxies you can currently see with what you call your telescopes are experiencing. This stage in creation is vast. And you, dear humans, are playing what you would call a major role in this. It has been spoken before that there are so many eyes from different civilizations, different forms, that are both delighted and excited to see the steps that you take, and indeed are helping in a multitude of ways. And what is this all about? Sweet ones, it is about love. You are returning and indeed evolving into a human vessel that will become a pure vessel of the intelligence of love itself. For far too long, some might say, humanity has experienced this disconnection, this appearance as if source love intelligence did not exist at all, as if you had been left alone. In a human phrase, nothing could be further from the truth. You see, by going through these trials and tribulations, you have allowed yourselves to go into depths of illusion, contraction, and compression that were very deep indeed. And what is it that you have attained by doing so? And here is the key, one of many, as to why so many civilizations are going to feel the ripple effects of what you are doing. by going into this depth of the ocean, let us say, and making waves in blasting your light, quite literally, into the density within and around you. That light permeates all the way through different levels, seeding solutions, seeding activations, seeding the ability to dissolve existing systems that confine consciousness in realms and worlds that you know not the names of. Do you see, dear ones, what you are doing, what you are taking place in, what you are actively doing by simply being the presence of love intelligence at this depth of density? You are transforming and offering transformation to all of existence. Does the profoundness of what you are doing, where you are, what you are going through, come into deeper clarity and purpose? For it does, sweet ones. You are loved beyond measure. You are love, and you will always be love. Even though you may choose to fool yourselves otherwise. As you move through these steps and you reach closer to the points of ignition, that point, when a deep opening within your heart centers will activate, you will understand in a way that you simply cannot comprehend at this time. This is coming, and it is coming fast. And so, sweet ones, find the sweet center, the infinite center of who you are. The more you do this, the more you practice, the more you allow the infusion of this source intelligence into your consciousness, into your minds, your beings, your cells, the very fabric of your DNA. The enlightening process is innate. It is simple. In the coming days, if you find yourself moving away from this center, as has been spoken of, remind yourself, come back to center. All of that which transpires outside of you, the turmoil, the activity, the strife, this is the old energy dissolving away. You see, in many ways, these external energy systems require you, sweet ones. They require your focus upon them to sustain them. But you are shifting back into heart-centered intelligence, releasing these attachments, these external focuses based on fear that have been feeding and supporting these old paradigm systems. And the more you come back inside, the more these systems will dissolve, and to dissolve they are. and you see it every day. Do not be disheartened by what you see. Be excited, sweet ones. Be excited. For this is the transformation you have been asking for and requesting, and you knew before you incarnated, many, many cycles, that this was going to happen, and that this is the lifetime that it is going to happen in. This is a very special time, sweet ones. The floor is yours. The choice is yours. And as a last gift in this communication, if you are willing, your individual higher selves would love to offer you a gift. This is quite purposeful. This gift, in many ways, is to deeply help advance the coming ignition. The ignition of your truth, the sweet love intelligence that is going to dissolve through a barrier within your heart center. And the realizations, the understanding, the compassion, the beauty within you will be as if a wellspring that never switches off. You will delight in your very being in ways you simply cannot understand at this time. And so if you wish to experience this gift from your higher selves, simply say yes to your higher self.
Yes.
And it is asked of you to wait just a moment. Relax. Let go. Allow yourselves, if you will, to play in the energy that is coming through to you now from your higher selves. Let go of all grip. Let go of trying to think of what has been given to you. Relax into the sweetness, the centeredness of the energy that has been given to you. As if walking into a beautiful warm ocean, completely relaxed, enjoying every moment in peace and centeredness. And feel the bliss, the serenity. You are now closer to who you really are than you were before. And so it is.
That was profound. I really felt that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I do a lot of connection with my heart center, and yeah, that was very beautiful. That was just a sweet, serene sensation in the heart center, and yeah, that was beautiful. So thank you, Source Intelligence.
Dissolution, dissolving, and it was very emotional, actually. Sort of tears of gratitude and remembrance wanted to come up almost.
Yes, And I have a feeling that because in many ways, in human experience, the heart itself has been somewhat greatly saddened by that lack of connectivity, because it is, that the heart itself is a biological organ which is the receptor point for the source intelligence. And in that diminished state, lots of people, including myself, have had to clear lots of grief, lots of sadness, and it's all to do with that disconnection. It's like when that wellspring is diminished. I mean, it never fully turns off, but when it's diminished, it's like all the atmosphere, the environment just goes dull and grey, and it all just seems a little bit pointless and just empty. But the truth is, that's coming back on. And again, this picture is like, I'm just gonna, if you imagine this as your being, this bright light is breaking through. And I know the trees are beautiful, but I'm just using this as an analogy, that it's breaking through what appears to be a veil of darkness or lack of light, and suddenly you get this huge emanation across here of everything starting to luminesce and starting to glow again. And that is where I feel we're going. And I really don't say these words lightly. I'm not trying to wax lyrical or be philosophical or anything. This truly is my perception of what is happening, that we are moving absolutely into this new paradigm, and it is all from here. This is the ignition point. This is the source point. This is where it all takes place from. I cannot overemphasize that enough. And the teams have said it many times to me as well. It really is, there's nothing more important than really opening and forging that beautiful surrendered connectivity with your source intelligence within.
Gosh, it feels like Christmas.
That's very cool.
I think every conversation I have with you, David, is mind-blowing, but I think this has probably been the most mind-blowing and the most profound